Hello everybody, Josh12 back here again with another video, and I'm here to give you my official review for the Shannara Chronicles Episode 1 and 2 titled Chosen. Now, of course, if you haven't seen these episodes, please go check it out because this review may contain spoilers. But that being said, let's get into MTV's newest original program, the Shannara Chronicles. Now, before getting into my actual review, I had two mindsets going into this review. Number one, I was getting ready to bullshit my way through it and basically bash the living crap out of MTV. Number two, there were some legitimate gems in this show that actually makes me want to take this show seriously. And number one, let's put it out there, I'm not a big fan of MTV. I don't really like MTV, the show, the network, anybody who's involved with it. I don't like any of the reality TV shows that are on there. I think they're just abortion/abominations. And I'm also not really that big of a fan of their original programs, which essentially I can't really comment on because I haven't watched all of them out of lack of interest. And also, I know a lot of people love Teen Wolf, but once again, another show I can't comment on because I don't really watch it. But with that being said, there were several gems attached to this program that made me interested into watching it in the first place. Number one, the visual style. Even watching the trailers, you can get the grasp of what this show is all about. Essentially, it's riding the coattails of Game of Thrones and Hunger Games. That's basically the best way to put it, and that's pretty much the tagline. But overall, the visual style looked very awesome. Number two, Jon Favreau as an executive producer, fuck yes. I will fucking watch anything Jon Favreau puts out. Even if it's stupid, I'll watch it. Number three, Manu Bennett. Manu Bennett is one of my faves. I think he's an awesome actor. I loved him in the Hobbit trilogy. I loved him in Arrow Season 2. I loved him in Spartacus. He's an awesome freaking dude. But with that being thrown aside, that's pretty much my mindset going into this show. Now, after watching it, man, is it a doozy. There's a lot of very good, and then there's a lot of bad to this show. Now, first off, let's paraphrase the story. Essentially, the story of Shannara Chronicles it takes place on Earth many, many years after the destruction, I guess, and/or extinction of the human race, and mankind, or at least the world Earth, is being ruled by elves and other fantastical creatures. But unfortunately, this tree, that I guess is the center of the Earth now, is essentially dying, and darkness is arising from the grave, if you will, and these three kids, led by Manu Bennett, are set to hopefully destroy this evil and bring peace back into the universe. Once again, it's essentially, if you've seen Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, this show's probably up your alley or probably will piss you off. Either way, it's one of those things. But with that being said and done, paraphrase-wise, this show, man, does it look cool. I think that's the best way I can put it. It looks freaking phenomenal. I think the best thing that this show has going for it, that's definitely an A+, that deserves people watching it, is the visual style. I mean, yes, it's very CGI heavy, but you could tell that these sets that they are actually on are real. They actually went to a specific place in the world and filmed something, which I always appreciate with TV shows and movies. And also, just the visual style of it all, the creativeness that they put into, like the costume designers and the set decorators, you can tell they were very meticulous with the way they formed this universe, the way they formed these chronicles of Shannara, or whatever the fuck they want to call it, whatever that means. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of MTV-isms. And what I mean by that is that the show is very dramatic in the sense that it pleases the hardcore base of teenage girls and teenage boys who probably watch a lot of ABC and are big fans of My Pretty Little Liars or some said shit. Like this is kind of like what it's formed for, which is not me, and probably not people like me. So that's kind of like a negative. And plus the actors that they chose, I really don't know where to go with them. Like, I can take or leave them. Like Austin Butler, he plays like the lead male protagonist other than Manu Bennett, and he's kind of like this half-human, half-elf who's destined to be the greatest magician of all time, or magical, like, warrior, or what have you, and he's like under the teachings of Manu Bennett, and he goes off to find the princess or whatever, very Luke Skywalker-esque, and you get the feeling of like, I don't really care about your adventure, and I don't really understand how you went from nobody from the beginning of this episode, and then somehow in between, like, episode 1 and 2, you finally have, like, this destiny. I don't really understand how that happened. And then you have the princess who's, like, I guess, the most beautiful actress they could get at the time, and they decided to make her basically, if you've seen Star Wars Force Awakens, she's essentially Rey. That's basically what she is. She's set out, and she doesn't really have any kind of real fate or destiny, but somehow has visions of the future, and then becomes OP. That's basically what she is. And then you have this other character, who's like the daughter of James Remar, who's co-starring in this show, which is pretty cool, because I like James Remar, but she's also kind of like, she has some kind of... She actually doesn't have anything to do with it. She's kind of like the female Han Solo, where she's just there for herself. She's kind of like in odds with her father and the life that they live, and the life that she's kind of gone on with this destiny, fate-driven plot with mankind and elves and destruction of evil and peace and justice and Manu Bennett or something. Like, there's a lot of weird that goes in with her, and you don't really know where to go with it. Manu Bennett kicks ass. Let's put it out there. He's like this druid warrior magical guy who freaking kicks ass, and he's freaking using the force or what have you, and magic and all that kind of crazy stuff. He's freaking badass. I feel like they should have just adapting a program and having Manu Bennett starring in such program. They should have just had him be one of two things: be the lead or be a magical creature, which he is none of. Once again, he's taking like a backseat to like the white actors, which is kind of sad, because I would like to see one day him actually headlining an actual TV show. But with that being thrown aside, I also kind of like wish, if he was going to play some kind of magical creature in this fantastical world that they created in MTV, it would have been nice to him being a creature of some sorts. I don't know what, but I just really wanted it. I'm just saying, I thought he was so badass in the Hobbit trilogy, and the big thing that I hated about his character in the Hobbit trilogy, even though it was awesome and badass, is the fact that it's fully motion captured CG, which I'm not really the biggest fan of. I mean, like, unless you're Andy Serkis, you need to fuck off with that motion capture shit. But if he brought that to this, and he was playing a creature of similar sorts, it would have been so awesome to see him that. Unfortunately, that's not what he is. Essentially, he's ObiWan Kenobi. He's a teacher. He's a freaking powerful creator of magic. And he's the master to, I guess, Austin Butler, who has some form of destiny/fate. And apparently he's now going to become a love interest for some princess or some wild girl who has no real fate and has pretty much nothing to do with the plot. That's basically Shannara Chronicles. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of really cool things that go into it, like the creature designs are really cool, the set design is cool, the visual effects are great, the plot is kind of whatever, it's kind of all over the place. Like, I feel like the best way to interpret what the show is, from looking out in an outside perspective as a viewer, it's a show that's tone deaf, rather. It's a show that doesn't really know what it wants to be, or knows what it's trying to be. It's like, it's trying to be Lord of the Rings, then it's trying to be Game of Thrones, then it's trying to be Star Wars, and then you kind of get like an anime almost feel out of it, like it feels kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender almost, and then it's just all over the place again. It doesn't know what genre it wants to be. It's sci-fi, then it's fantasy, then it's adventure, then it's action, then it's, then it's drama, then it's like high school bullshit. It's like, pick a genre and stick to it. Don't try to do so many things you can't do right. If you can't do this right, then don't do it at all. If you can do this right, then do it first, That's kind of like where I'm coming with it. But with that being said and done, let's try and put out a final verdict for this episode. Episode 1 and 2, if you will. The premiere, if you will. I have to give it a solid 7 out of 10. I feel like this show has promise. It has a lot of MTV-isms, which are not great, which is like very like good-looking young unknown actors that you probably won't care about. You have a whole bunch of like dramatic music from like pop bands that you probably don't listen to, and there's a lot of like high school drama without the high school. That's basically the best way I can put it when it comes to MTV-isms that I don't really appreciate or like. However, the visual style, the action, Manu Bennett kicks ass. The adventure looks kind of cool. That is what I'm looking forward to in this show, and that's what is the pinnacle and the silver lining of what's good in this show, which is the visual design, the creative design, the artistic design, everything that has to do with the landscape. Like, this is the best way for people who want to get into the show. This is the best way to put it. Everything that surrounds the characters and the plot is cooler than the actual plot and the characters that are doing it. Now, granted, You might go both ways, like sure, after like an hour of watching this program / premiere, you bound to like characters. Like, even myself, I'm not the biggest Austin Butler guy, fan, if you will, but after a while I'm like, okay, I get where he's coming from. Like, yeah, he's a little Luke Skywalker ripoff-y, but I can get it. Like, the princess, yeah, she's kind of cool, even though she's like a Jennifer Lawrence ripoff, I can get into this. And then, like, Manu Bennett, he's Manu Bennett. He's badass. Okay, sure. Like, I can get into this. So overall, it just really depends on your perspective, your personal preference, and whether or not you care about MTV to even begin with. Like, if you're not a big MTV fan, this might change your mindset, considering it's so alien in comparison to other MTV programs. But it still has the MTV isms. Like, I feel like Jon Favreau or whoever was creating the show, like, came in and was like, we want to create, like, something really cool and badass. And like, every network was like, yeah, that kind of seems like a ripoff of Hunger Games and Game of Thrones. But not MTV. They were like, we'll take that shit, but we want some stuff. Like, we want, like, teen drama. We want, like, some, like, really good-looking actors that, you know, obviously probably can't act, and we want everyone who looks like they should be modeling underwear in this show, and, you know, some other kind of bullshit like that. That's pretty much the Shannara Chronicles MTV programming. It's okay. It's a okay show for MTV standards. Hell, it's probably better than MTV standards, considering it's so different from other MTV programs. But as it stands, my final verdict is going to stay the same. The premiere episodes, they were okay. It was a good start to a program, but you never know. It could fall on its face. I mean, I did say the same thing for Scream, and we already know how that happened. I mean, it pretty much lost itself, and it sucked ass, unfortunately. But with that being said, this show could show some promise, and it does have an amazing visual style, and a lot of really creative artists are really attached to this program that really created some amazing costume work, some great creature effects, and just the overall landscape of this Shannara Chronicles looks amazing. I mean, like, I want to go there. I want to do these kind of things and these adventures. Maybe not with the same people, and I would, like, I guess, be hanging out with Manu Bennett all the time, and I want to be, like, magical. I want to be Doctor Strange, Manu Bennett. I don't know, but that's just my personal opinion on it. Final verdict, 7 out of 10. Decent, good start to a show, but I don't know where it's going to go from here, and we don't know whether it's going to be good or bad. Once again, it's MTV, so it can go both ways. It can be either really mediocre, or it can suck ass. I think that's the best way to go from here, unfortunately. But you never know. Maybe, you know, this show has a lot more interesting episodes. If I'm not mistaken, I think episode 3 and 4 are already available online, if I'm not mistaken, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But overall, let me know what you personally thought about the Shannara Chronicles in the comment section below. Did you love the premiere? Did you hate the premiere? What are your personal thoughts on the cast, the design, the landscape, the story? Are you a fan of the original books? Let me know if they're worth reading. And let me know your personal thoughts as a whole when it regards to MTV's newest show, the Shannara Chronicles. I'm just saying, like, it's okay. It's an okay show to start with. I mean, like, in comparison to other MTV programs, this is probably the best thing I've seen from them, but that's not really saying much. I mean, I'd rather, once again, just watch, like, Game of Thrones or something. Like, it's essentially just another one of those multiple TV shows / movies that try to rip off and ride the coattails of Game of Thrones, Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars. That's basically what it is. Which I guess, depending on your personal preference, is a good or bad thing. But with that being said, comment below, let me know what you personally think. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, @Jonch12. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And this has been Jonch12.